My name is Nora Angeles. I'm a social worker by work and by education. I immigrated to Canada in the 70s, early 70s. I immigrated to Montreal. And so at that time it was easy for immigrants because in the 70s they paid you to go to French school. They gave you an allowance so you could learn French. Moved to Toronto with the exodus of people who were getting booted out because we weren't French, right? So that was part of the challenge too, right? Like immigrating there and then kind of technically, being exiled out of Montreal because of the referendum and the French movement there. They wanted really to preserve French, and so it became stricter and stricter, and it became harder for us, especially the immigrants, to stay. I became a social worker when I moved here to Toronto about 40 years ago. I hired myself because no one would hire me as a social worker. So we basically created a program for young immigrants and women, immigrant women and refugee women. I started doing training, and then from there I started doing training in human rights, which included anti-racism, anti-homophobia. With the Center for Social Justice, I was able to do like a full year of free training for all kinds of organizations. We also did what we called amalgamation, because it was an Asian group, right? So amalgamation was a conference of Asian LGBTQ. Yeah, we did it at U of T. It was a kind of a bold thing to do at the time, but we did it. And it was a lot of fun. I'm retired now since 2019. But I find that to be able to do the work, you really need to know yourself. You need to basically see yourself as a whole person. And by that, I mean someone who has done the work on their own issues, so that when I'm faced with a woman who's having her issues does not seep through mine and mine through hers. So it becomes really about her and not about me. I really needed to take care of myself. Sleep well, eat well, exercise, do all those things so that I can then be ready. If your house is not strong, when the storm comes, it's going to be gone, right? The floods will take it, the winds will take it. So that's kind of how I see it. I need to be strong when I'm doing the work. I think it's the fact that I kind of knew my boundaries. Like I was able to know when I need to take care of myself. When I see a woman as a client, I see it as an exchange. This woman is here trusting me with her issues and thinking that I have something, that can actually help her. I'm using what she brought into the conversation to just be like a mirror and say, see yourself, you have this strength, you can do this. And basically, I think that's kind of what I did. So I don't give that much of myself. I just, I really think it's a cycle. I get something from that because I often say when a woman starts telling me what their issues are, that takes a lot of bravery and courage. And so I'm very grateful, I'm very thankful to have that honor, right? That trust. I say that peace is kind of different for everybody, but for me, peace means, having your own time, your own quiet time, but also having time with family, with the grandkids, with friends. Because of my color, because of my gender, and because of my orientation, I had all of those, that planted, brainstormed, ingrained in us, that, internalized homophobia, internalized racism, internalized misogyny. So I had to kind of undo all of those things, detox, right? And say, you know what, it isn't me that's wrong, right? I need to accept myself so that other people can accept. Because you also see, like, even with my parents, I had to kind of try to understand why they were having a hard time with accepting that lifestyle. And I said to myself, well, if I am demanding them to accept me, then I need to be able to accept them as well. So in social work education, that's part of, part of the whole thing is to know that every person has dignity, and that you need to be able to treat other people as equal and a human being with dignity. And in the Philippines, if you work as a social worker, they or anything as a professional, they think that you're higher, right? And you always needed to remind people, no, it's I'm just here to facilitate, I'm just here to help, I'm not giving you anything. And so that's kind of because that's when I actually had that analysis of when you actually give in to what people are expecting of you as the person who's responsible for this relationship, then you feel the burden, right? And every time it happens, you're feeling it more and more and more. And you needed to kind of stay away from that and say, you know what? No, my role is this, and this is up to where I am. So I needed to really make sure that I have that balance. Sometimes we are so impatient with ourselves and our own journey, but we can't really be judgmental. We need to have compassion for ourselves. So compassion to be able to understand that we're not perfect, right? And that there are issues. We need to be honest with ourselves to know what it is that we are doing to have that war within ourselves. What is it that we don't like about ourselves, right? And then if you understand where that's coming from, I think you can start to actually undo those things. So what we're trying to do with our young people in our community now is the use of Arnis, A-R-N-I-S. It's a Filipino martial arts. We use sticks, and it's like, it's called Combat Science. She's our partner. She comes with us when we do these workshops, or we actually go to her studio to do the workshop. Yeah. So what we're trying to do as an organization, and me as an individual, is to still try to connect with young groups of women, mostly Filipinos or immigrant women, to see themselves as not just physical beings or emotional beings, because when you're trying to deal with stuff within yourself, people think it's mostly emotional. But when you do self-defense and do movements, you know that things are connected. So it's actually scientific that, when you do physical movement, there are certain stresses and tension that leaves your body. Knowing oneself and then caring for yourself, having compassion for yourself, because there's a saying, right? Like, you really can't love anybody unless you know how to love yourself. And it's the same thing with compassion. When people are judgmental, they're judgmental about themselves as well. So I can always tell when people say things about other people, I know they're not accepting of themselves as well. So